I'm just kidding.
No, just.
Where's, he was working.
They get it probably or something.
On phones.
Oh, well, I guess.
No, it's, I know it.
I think these is. You guys ready? All right, we'll go ahead and get started, folks. Gonna go through, we'll start out with the commission member roll call.
Wilson,
Here.
Drew,
Here.
Martin,
Here.
Christensen,
Here.
Jameson,
Here.
Hughes,
Here.
Price.
Here.
So now we got through that. We'll go through for approval of the current agenda. Everybody had a chance to take a look. Do we have a motion to approve?
Make the motion.
Motion to approve by Bragg. We have a second.
I'll second it.
Second.
Yeah, I did good.
Lynn, did you second? Okay, sorry. Okay, we'll go through, if everybody had a chance to read the minutes from the previous meeting. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes from the previous meeting?
So moved.
John, okay, we got one by John. We got a second?
I'll second.
Second, okay, we got a second. Davis. Okay, going into new business, we're gonna have discussion. Formal action on zoning district amendment for the proposed zoning district change from agricultural residential to highway oriented commercial pertaining to parcel 121402005000000 at 66-260 Highway 275 in Aber, Iowa, Rawls Township for the zoning district amended application 25-03. We will now have applicant presentation.
Good evening. Thank you for entertaining us tonight. So my name is Chris Wood and I have with us my husband and my son and daughter-in-law, Logan and Emily Wood. We have two more people that are a party to this transaction, and that is Tim and Kane Wood, and they were not able to attend tonight. So I did put together a slideshow presentation. We are requesting a zoning amendment. It's currently zoned as ag residential with conditional use of convenience storage. With that convenience storage, you are able to put storage in their household goods, storing cars, RVs, that type of thing. They do shy away from any workshops, hobby shops, commercial activity, things like that. What we're proposing is the commercial highway oriented district. Now 275 is a state highway, so that limited us on which commercial zoning we could choose. And Matt, if I understand correctly, that was our only option, correct? So we are asking that we make a zoning change to that property to the commercial highway oriented district to that property at 66260 Highway 275. So you might ask, why are we asking for a zoning change? Well, first of all, we would be remiss if we didn't talk about the economic development of the area. It's important to us that Southwest Iowa continue to thrive, number one. When we looked for a building to put our stuff in, we could not find storage for the things that we wanted to store. So ultimately, we ended up going to a farmer, asking them to parcel off a piece of their land and building a building for that purpose. So having access to amenities in the area is very important for continued growth. That brings people in town to shop, that brings people in town to visit, that brings people in town to live. And with all of those different types of activities comes an increase in the tax revenue, an increase in consumer spending, and then a stronger local economy. So let's take a look. If each of those pages, and the ones with the pictures are a little harder to see, but I'm looking at this one. So this is the building as it currently stands right now, the property as it stands. We have 15 storage units, and then we have the original building that is there. On page 5, you'll see down in the lower corner of the spreadsheet, it'll tell you the page numbers down in here. So on this one, you can see the original building and then the Hetzel home that is to the south. And on page 6, we're up here in the corner. These are the trees at the north end of our property. And then that's the property looking to the north. So every time we do something with our land, we have thought about the area and what is best for the area and trying to maintain the integrity of the area. So in maintaining that ag residential or that ag rural feeling to the property, we do choose colors that complement the ag industry. We did choose styles of buildings that are consistent with size and style to the buildings to the property to the south and the property to the north. And then we really considered, and Matt really encouraged us too, when we were putting up the original building and the additional buildings, are we hindering anybody's view? And we do not feel like we are hindering views with the building that is there. So if you look at the surrounding area, I'm moving on to page 8. So when you look at that surrounding area, the aqua blue is this piece of land that we are talking about. So if you look to the north, the south, the east, and the west, immediately surrounding it is crop ground. Then if we move on to page 9, we go up a little bit further. And you'll see that to the north, we do have an ag residential property on the other side of the crop ground. To the south, you have the Hetzel property, ag residential again. And then right across the road from the Hetzels is yet another ag residential property. Then if I move on to page 10, again, ours is in the aqua blue. And you'll see the Hetzel farm to the south, that is 10 acres, ours is 3 acres. You'll see just to the south of them, there's a 40-acre parcel that has a farming corporation on there for cattle operation. And then if you go to the north, that ag residential was previously a commercial business as well. It was a trucking business. And going on to page 11, I do have a correction on this slide. So that first bullet says traffic and noise is anticipated to be at a level less than or equal to a single family residential. I regressed to my real estate appraisal days and said single family residential. It should actually be a residential in that respect, because that is what is around us, not a single family residential like you would find in a town. There are 2 property accesses to the property that we are talking about. Those two property accesses are both at the north and at the south. They both offer off-street access to the property. So when you pull in, you don't have to stay on the highway to get to a unit or to back into a unit. There is space within that property to pull in so that people are not blocking the highway. So it's not impeding traffic on Highway 275. And then as requested by Mills County Planning and Zoning Board of Adjustment, a fence was put into the south to control the headlight exposure on the Hetzel property to the south. So traffic and noise, we anticipate to be similar or equal to an ag residential property. We did try to mitigate the light exposure. And if you turn to the next page, you'll see that we did do down lighting to limit that exposure. We have individual overhead garage doors, and the whole facility has security cameras on. Utilities and drainage on page 13. We do have an electrical transformer on the property that will support the building units, the storage units, as well as the existing building. There is an existing well on the property. And then the Rawls Township Drainage District drains in that front access drainage ditch. And so that has maintained or being retained intact as well. So in closing, again, we want to bring an opportunity to the area to bring economic development to the area. We really try hard to maintain our property very well. We want to preserve the rural integrity of the area. Traffic is directed off the highway by 2 access points. We tried to limit the light exposure that is on the property. Sound exposure is similar to surrounding properties, and the property is secure, and the utilities have been put in place prior to putting in the storage unit, but they will support the storage units that are there. So every effort to support the integrity of the area has been made, and we hope that you also find the value that we see in providing additional storage to people in the area. Any questions?
I don't have any right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, is there any public comment? Anybody?
If you give a variance, what goes on in another 20 years when they're done? What can happen after that?
Tonight, they're not asking for a variance, they're asking for a rezoning of the property.
That's what he's talking
That's
about.
what I mean. If you rezone it, what happens in 20 years?
Right, if they leave, now, they're looking at what the rural community is like around them, such as our place. However, if something happens and it's sold at some point to somebody else, now it's zoned commercial, what's the limitations?
Right, and that's what's laid out in the code. So when this commission goes to look at what the recommendation is gonna be, if they're not basing it off of their proposed use of the property, they have to go back to the zoning ordinance, look at all of the principal and conditional uses that lie within that C2 zoning that they're requesting for that, and potentially determine, are these uses that we can see coinciding with that area?
You just skirted around the question.
No, that's the answer to the question, because there's principal and conditional uses listed out in the zoning ordinance for a C2 zoning district. So if this zoning change is approved, then that moves what their principal and conditional uses are. Currently in the AR district, which is where they're at right now, there's principal and conditional uses in that, which is why they have a conditional use permit to be able to have storage units there. Moving it over then, it's the same thing, but now this commission has to look at those principal and conditional uses allowed in the C2 zoning district and think, does this fit? So if it were to change, then in 20 years from now, yes, somebody could come in and say, well, it's a principal use of the property for me to have an administration office there. So I'm going to open an administration office there. It's a conditional use if I want to open a hospital there. So they'd have to come back in and ask for a conditional use.
City bar.
Any of the sexually oriented businesses wouldn't be in there.
You can guarantee that tonight.
I think Mills County ordinance is pretty strict on that, so.
Yeah. They're only allowed an area about this big, it's just because they were there.
I mean, it could come back to haunt this whole board, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, I don't wanna sit and look at some manufacturing next door. I mean, if it's commercial, what is it truly limited to? That's the question, is,
I would say it's a list of things, I don't know.
I mean.
So Matt, my question to you, which would be a question about the definition. So with the AR district that it's in now, the request for a rezone, is it more for outdoor storage without being in buildings? Is that why we're requesting a new zone? Or tell me why I guess I'm asking you first. We go from AR to C2, what's the main reason behind it?
I think we would have to direct that question.
Okay, I'll direct it to you guys.
The reason for that is that right now we're limited to things that are towable or drivable.
Okay,
And so we've had like construction people that want to store sheetrock and things like that. And we're having to say, no, we can't let you do that. So we don't plan on any outside storage because that was part of our original agreement. Everything's going to be inside, but it's just to give us that option, the ability to have that for them to store their sheetrock inside and things like that. Metal studs they asked about.
so kind of like a electrical contractor that'd like to come in and out of it every day to get his materials to go to the job site,
Yeah, like
something like that. That's now, Matt, is that possible to get done through a conditional use permit through AR?
Right now, it's not allowed on that. I don't know if a variance is allowed on that.
No, I think we looked at that at the time when they went through their original conditional use. The only way for them to have storage there was for the storage. The vehicle storage short term.
So at the bottom of page 2, that is the actual Mills County zoning code. In that little box down there, code 27.3.7. So it allows for workshops, hobby shops, manufacturing or commercial activity. Manufacturing is very limited with a 3-acre parcel.
So right now, you're in an AR zone and we're using the term convenience storage. And with that, did you get a conditional use permit from the zoning board?
We did.
Or from the, okay, so say that again, from the, which board? We're
Board of
planning,
Adjustments.
Board of Adjustments. Okay, so do you have that documentation, Matt, of what type of conditional use permit? During that meeting, did they say, hey, we need to put up a fence for?
We do have the conditional, we have the resolution from that, yes.
Can we see that or read that on what they was?
Yeah, we can print that off for you quick.
Yeah, I'd like to see that, to see how that all went down. So these people came in to get a conditional use permit because they're putting a storage facility in an AR zone, which is next to you guys, in a board different than us. And what that board did is said, were you guys at that meeting when that happened or not? Okay, so what happened, I assume is they said, okay, this is allowed for you to do this and this on your land, but you have to do this, this, and this for this to be allowed. So that's what this board doesn't know, what was required by them when you got your conditional use permit. So hopefully we'll read through that here in a second. And I think what you're saying, Matt, is is it will have to be rezoned for them to potentially, like for an example of an electrician coming in and out there every day running his electrical business out of it.
Right, if you're gonna have those trade, you have those trade services available to them, and you may have seen buildings like this similar. If you get around in the council bluffs, they have these buildings that they put out in the city now. Because it does work out better for those small business owners, whether you're HVAC, electricians, plumbers, they'll rent those bays out. And the difference being between storage, you're gonna have the employees coming and going. Possibly throughout the day, come in and grab the items that they need and leave out of there. So to rent it in that way, it's a bit different than, just your regular storage unit.
And another thing while we're just going through this a little bit here, I'm not too sure if we've done much of what they're requesting here. I don't know if we've cut out a piece of property and changed the zoning on it without being contiguous to. Is anybody else on the board aware of something like that we've done like this, or am I? What's that?
I'm not aware of any.
Yeah. So here's, you guys have a copy of this? Are you reading it? You guys have one, or do you?
We've seen it.
Okay.
Mhm.
So to answer your question on that, Alan. Is there a potential of it going through another conditional use? I'd say possibly for warehousing and enclosed. If you wanted to look at it that way. You could consider warehousing.
Makes a lot of sense to me, you know, if it's possible to go that route. The one thing about what you're talking about is it's not like there's, not like it's retail. They're not coming in there, they're going in there and buying things out of there. They're just picking up stuff to go do a project or a job. And maybe Matt's gonna look into, but basically what this is, when you guys, got your conditional use permit, talked about the site obscuring fence and then the outdoor, that there'll be no outdoor storage. And I think I saw in here that you're hoping to build more buildings. Is that what I'm seeing? Did I see that in one of these pages? I think I did.
Two more buildings to the east and north.
Okay.
How many more units will that be?
There's a 15.
15
Each one.
Chris, have you planned on putting a fence all around it? I have a lot of concerns about them.
We aren't at this time. Right now we have the security cameras on there. And we have a lot of eyes on there. Like we get a lot of calls and texts a lot, but again, down the road. You know, you have that available to you. At the time that we put it in, since we are not doing outdoor storage, that was not something that was required.
I just worry about storm and power going out, you're losing your security cameras. It is so visible on the highway. And the stuff that's in there's not gonna be changed.
Matt, you use the terminology warehousing. Is that what are you?
Yeah, so part of
Yeah.
the, sorry.
As I say, so the way it's sort of uses, so if you have warehousing enclosed, uses include storage, distribution, handling of goods and materials within enclosed structures. typical uses include wholesale distributors, storage warehouses, van and storage company.
So in your professional opinion, is that
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Matt, do you want to talk a little bit real quick, and then I'm gonna be quiet and let everybody else talk. Do you want to talk a little bit about spot zone?
Yes,
Okay.
so spot zoning would be, if you were to just grab a parcel of land, that doesn't necessarily conform with, the rest of the zoning around it, or, and I mentioned this to Lonnie earlier when he came in, 'cause he brought up kind of that same portion of it. Was if it doesn't fit in within continuous with your land use plan, if it's just, right, say it's on the corner somewhere, not necessarily a highway or anything else around it, you said, hey, we're gonna zone this commercial industrial. Or if it's commercial industrial, you're gonna pop a house in the middle of it, you're gonna turn that one spot back into residential. This part here, I think it does, I think it would conform with our land use plan. When we look at our land use plan, how it talks about the commercial zones along highways. And that's kind of right in line with what this is. I mean, it has a large frontage right along the state highway system. And they're driving down that road. I went out there just this afternoon. You know, there's at least 2 other businesses located along that road. I didn't pull up what their zoning is on it or how they got to be where they are, but I mean, it is what it is. So, but spot zoning, it is illegal. You're not allowed to do it. And we always make sure, I guess you gotta make sure that you're not doing it, so.
Would this be considered spot zoning, or you say it wouldn't be?
Right, it matches up with our land use plan. It is right along the state highway system. There's future growth will come out that way. And I mean, as you get into Tabor Main Street, there is lined with a mix of commercial businesses along with housing mixed in there. So as Tabor grows out to the north, I'm sure it would absorb in, fine if it does grow to the north.
When Pearson had his trucks, was that rezoned for him?
I don't believe so.
When Bryce had his fertilizer business, probably there long before there's even zoning laws.
I imagine that both of those were there before zoning came into effect in those counties, yes.
When did zoning laws become in effect in this county?
2007.
I think I did that survey before 2000.
Yes, I said I was gonna be quiet for a minute, but our future land use plan, does anybody have a map of it somewhere?
Yeah.
Or can it be pulled up?
Did you say what the height of those buildings are gonna be?
Same.
The same?
Everything.
Yeah. Okay.
Taller than what we already have.
Is this in the mile limit of Tabor, or the 2 mile limit of Tabor?
I'd say it's probably, it would probably be within 2 mile limit, maybe. 2 mile ETJ that each of the communities have in the state of Iowa only pertains to their subdivision of the, not necessarily.
That's fine.
The current units you guys are looking at building, are those being structured for the RVs, or you guys look, if you had the zoning change, would you change that to contractor base?
That'd be similar to the 15 bay units.
Yeah, so they would house RVs, boats. That's what we found. Nothing was tall enough to house the big RVs or the boats. And so that was our kind of the driving factor when we were looking at these. And then we had like the businesses starting to reach out.
They're constructed is you make the frame and then there's the individual walls in there. So it would be something that you'd be able to take out a wall, make it a double bay entrance. If you had someone that rented both sides, it'd have to be a longer term type of contract to build it and
Right.
obviously
Yeah.
take it back out.
No,
So they're not wide enough for most farm equipment.
Well, I think the structure you built looks good. I mean, I think it's got a lot of eye appeal on the highway. It's just, hopefully we can figure out a way to keep everything going.
Okay.
If you used it as utility or maintenance facility definition, that changes things.
For Matt, for the last time here, in your opinion, what type of chances would this get passed with a conditional use permit by the Board of Adjustments to use the facility how they want to use it?
Add warehousing
Yeah.
and to add to their conditional uses. I would, the Board of Adjustment, from what I've seen so far, if it's a listed conditional use on there and people come to them with a good plan, they haven't denied one yet. I mean, they feel as though it's a listed conditional use and people should be permitted to give it a shot. So they haven't denied anybody. They put a couple of them on some campground ones. I've seen do a number of conditions.
Yeah. Which I think would, you know, if you're concerned about the 20 years from now and the commercial, but I mean, I do think 20 years from now, that's probably gonna look pretty commercial through there, but I guess as a group, we have to decide, we have to make a motion on what we're doing, or we have to decide if the board, if this is more of a job for the Board of Adjustments, or it's more of a job for the zoning board. And I guess that's my opinion, what everybody else thinks. I shouldn't say as a group, I guess you gotta decide what you think on your own.
well, I think I kind of like that avenue. Going through I mean, don't like pulling parcels out and just rezoning a particular parcel, and there's not any other commercial right next to it. I could understand if there were commercial properties close to what you guys are doing, I'd probably be a little bit more supportive of that. But just pulling one out, being outside of Tabor until see further development, it's a little hard to support something like that. I think what you guys are doing is it's a nice product, but that's the main reason I couldn't support just pulling one out.
I think we're all for it. It's just
How do we get there?
how we get there right now. Also,
How close would you say would be considered to have another commercial lot, I guess? How close are you?
I mean, it's more about the density of it. So, if you start seeing more growth towards North Tabor, I mean, you got what, Dollar General or one of the dollar stores there. If you see continued growth that way outside of Tabor, then, but yeah, it's more about the density of it.
So we'd have to wait for it to build on top, build on top, build on top until they get to us, type of a thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, something like that, yeah. Just for the fact that, with C2, this opens up a lot of things that could happen on that property. Not
Well,
only
and it
you
opens,
guys-
and it's not just your
It's not
property
just
that
yours.
anyone else can come in and apply. We wouldn't have, a leg to stand on and decline it.
It's one of the, we don't want to set a precedent for some other areas and don't want to see this.
I was just wondering how
Yeah.
close it had to be.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say on something like that, but.
You guys were talking about 2 miles, it's within 2 miles of what on Google Maps it looked like to Dollar.
That would be
General.
their annex zone
Yeah.
where Tabor can technically take that and make that theirs. But I think what Matt was saying is the residential growth has to permit into that before they can start claiming that land.
Based on the use example, we could talk about a maintenance facility, we could talk about utility, we could talk about like, just wanted to see the more detailed definitions because
Help me understand, is that in the commercial one or is that in the
in
conditional use?
So in ag residential, if we said maintenance facility, it's a conditional use permit. We said utilities, it's permitted. If we said business support services, it's conditional use permit. So not necessarily household goods, but if you're doing that as the example that we were talking about.
So tell me more about the utilities. When you said utilities
I
is
said, is there-
permitted, does that mean that we already can have somebody store their utilities
Don't
stuff
know
in
what
there?
the definition is exactly.
No, the
That's why-
utilities would be directed at, any above ground structures or facilities other than lines, poles, or other incidental facilities used for the production, generation, transmission, delivery, collection,
Okay.
storage of water, sewage, electricity.
That's
It's just there.
Yeah,
It's
that's,
the-
yeah, no, that's. It's not. So the warehousing is already on the. And maybe that's not a question for your group, maybe it's a question for the other group. If warehousing is already on the conditional use permit. We already have the right to do.
I don't think so
think it's on
because you
there.
didn't put it on your application.
Got it.
Specific to you.
Like here it says section 2. I guess that's where we would bring up the number 4 would be warehousing.
Yeah. And
Is that the only thing that, there's any other things that you're trying to get accomplished, or it's just that? Okay,
People are reaching out to us, say,
I can see why they're reaching
Dennison
out.
Drywall wants to store their sheet rock and stuff in there, and
Yeah.
according to the way we filed first, we can't let them in there.
Yeah.
No, I get that part. I mean, I steel ends, it's easy for guys to, if they've got a lift or whatever, They don't have to worry about hitting anything. I get it.
Well, um, I think I sense how this board's going. Matt, is there any financial things that we should do differently than, I don't want these guys to keep spending money on stuff cause I assume this cost them some money, right? How much?
500.
This costs 500. And then we go back to the Board of Adjustments. I'm sure that's another fee, I would assume.
It would be another fee.
Lonnie, can we cut them a deal?
I don't think we're adjustments now. You guys, I can't.
We can't add anything to their conditional use.
No. No.
When you asked, and this is just a question, I'm not part of this board, but when you asked for your conditional use permit before, that is all you asked for was just to store vehicles in it?
We had a lot of conversations ahead of that as to what was allowed.
Good.
So that's the direction, that's what we tried to portray as what was allowed.
Well, I'm gonna make a motion that we deny changing that parcel to C2.
A second.
Favor,
Should we do some discussion? Nick?
anybody want discussion?
Yeah, I'd
I
like to
thought we
just,
were doing
yeah, I want to discuss our motions here.
discussion.
The reason why is I think this can go through the Board of Adjustments and the warehousing potentially. That doesn't change the zone of that parcel. And I guess it might, that's the reason why I motion to not change it into commercial.
The reason why I second it is, historically, we haven't taken just one piece out, done it that way. You're able to do what your intended use was for those buildings. I understand that new uses have came up. I agree with Al that there's a great potential to go a different direction to get that without us changing something that brings on fears for your neighbors or anyone else at this time. So
Let me make a comment. We were we were advised to come to this board instead of going there. So then that's why we paid to come. So.
Yeah, the
Okay.
commercial activity was something that was our understanding couldn't be a conditional use. So that's unfortunate.
This feels like we're getting pushed back to them. They might just say, go back to. So.
Yeah,
I don't know.
possible.
I think that is the problem, is plucking out. It's not something we want to do or start doing that. So that's why, and I agree, I think going the other route or might be the best way for you to go. Because I don't think there's probably anybody up here that doesn't think you're doing.
yeah, I think your facility's great. I think it looks great. I think its future plan looks great. I think you are able to do what you intended for it to do. So I don't think we're, I don't feel like we've pigeonholed you in that regard. And I think, for the people that surround you, there's a way to kind of alleviate some of their fears and you still be able to do what you hope to do in the future with it. And I believe your intentions are all good. I trust all that. But yeah, we just haven't taken little chunks out. I don't know, Matt, do you have any more feedback for us on it?
No, like I said, the commission could really go like either way. I mean, I felt as though that it was in conformance with the land use plan and something to start down, but if you guys, commission right now feels as though they want to just keep it on the conditional use side of things, then safe route to choose. Sooner or later, the part on being the first, I mean, sooner or later, somebody on the highway. will have to change.
Well, let me ask you something.
Just, I mean, and at that point in time, like, I mean, it was just the right, a different project. Something that happens, but somebody's gonna be first at some point.
Good point.
Yes, guys, something. I like the look of your place. They're nice looking buildings, it's clean, it's nice. It has nothing to do with what's there now. If you knew that having a commercial setting for that, potentially have an auto salvage place next to you, how would you feel?
I don't think that facility would be allowed, but I guess I don't know that for
But
sure.
it's listed as it could be allowed if you look at the commercial listing. It opens up a whole new can of worms.
Well, we have a motion and a second. Do we need to take-
Yes.
Thorson,
Yay.
Drew,
Yeah.
Martin,
Yay.
Christensen,
Yes.
Jameson.
Yay.
Hughes,
Yay.
Fry. Yeah.
Right, do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll motion.
Second, Fry. All in favor?
Aye.
Yes,